Ladies and gentlemen, when the sun rises and the world begins to stir, there is a sacred moment, a whisper between heaven and earth, that invites you to pause, to breathe, and to remember who walks beside you. Each morning, before the noise of the world floods your spirit, there lies a quiet power waiting for your attention, the presence of God. When you begin your day not with worry, not with haste, but with Him, something divine begins to unfold. The same path that once looked uncertain becomes clear. The same heart that once felt heavy begins to rise. And the same life that once seemed ordinary begins to glow with purpose. Starting your day with God is not just a ritual. It is a declaration that your peace, your strength, and your destiny are rooted in something far greater than circumstance. When you start your day with God, you invite peace before the world invites pressure. There is a sacred rhythm to mornings that most people rush past. The stillness before the sun fully rises, the quiet hum of creation awakening, the soft air that carries whispers of new beginnings. All of it is a divine invitation to connect, to align, and to prepare your spirit for the hours ahead. Yet so many wake up and run toward the noise. They reach for their phones before they reach for purpose. They check messages before they check their hearts. They begin reacting before they begin reflecting. But those who choose to start their day with God know something deeper, something eternal. Peace is not found in the absence of problems. It is found in the presence of God. When you wake up and speak to Him, when you breathe His name before the world speaks to you, you set a tone that no chaos can undo. You invite peace into your atmosphere, strength into your spirit, and clarity into your path. There is a certain beauty in the mornings that are surrendered to God. When you begin your day in His presence, you are not just praying, you are aligning. You are choosing to let divine order rule over human hurry. You are choosing to let stillness lead before the storm even begins. The world will always bring pressure. It will demand your time, your energy, your thoughts, your emotions. It will try to pull you into fear, confusion, and distraction. But peace, when it lives inside you, becomes your silent protector. It becomes your shield, your anchor. Your reminder that even in the midst of 1,000 demands, your soul can remain still. That kind of peace is not random. It is intentional. It is birthed in the quiet hours of surrender, when your first conversation of the day is not with the world, but with your Creator. When you open your eyes each morning, you are gifted with a blank page. The story of your day has yet to be written, and the author of peace stands ready to co-write it with you. You can choose to rush, to plan, to control, or you can choose to rest, to trust, and to align. When you start with God, you hand Him the pen. You allow His wisdom to shape your thoughts, His love to soften your heart, and His presence to settle your spirit. The pressures of life lose their power when you carry peace in your heart. Because peace is not something that happens around you, it's something that happens within you when God becomes your center. Every worry begins to shrink when measured against His greatness. Every fear begins to fade when illuminated by His light. Every burden begins to lift when laid at His feet. To start your day with God is to remind yourself that you are not alone. It is to remember that before the world demanded anything from you, heaven already approved you. It is to stand in the awareness that your worth is not determined by what you do today, but by who you belong to. When you begin your morning in prayer, in reflection, or simply in gratitude, you draw strength from the source of life itself. You begin to operate from peace, not pressure. You move through your tasks not as someone chasing validation, but as someone already grounded in divine assurance. You start to see that peace is not passive, it's powerful. It's what keeps your heart soft in a hard world, your mind clear in a confusing one, and your spirit strong when everything else feels uncertain. The moment you open your eyes, the world begins to compete for your attention. Notifications blink, responsibilities press in, and voices, both internal and external, begin to speak. But when you start your day with God, you train your soul to listen first to the voice that truly matters. You give yourself permission to slow down, to breathe, to remember. You begin to walk in rhythm with eternity instead of racing against time. You invite heaven's order into your earthly routine. You start to notice the divine in the ordinary, the sunlight filtering through your window, the rhythm of your breath, the warmth of gratitude that rises when you realize you've been given another chance to live, to love, to grow. Peace begins to fill your morning not because your circumstances are perfect, but because your focus is. There is something deeply powerful about the way peace changes how you move. When you begin your day with God, you begin to respond differently to the world. The things that once upset you no longer hold the same weight. The words that once wounded you no longer cut as deep. The situations that once overwhelmed you become opportunities for patience and prayer. You begin to walk through your day with a quiet strength, a knowing that you are protected, that you are guided, that you are loved beyond measure. The peace that God gives is not fragile. It is not dependent on how people treat you or how your plans unfold. It is steady, unwavering, and deeply rooted in trust. It is the kind of peace that allows you to smile even when life feels uncertain, to stand tall even when challenges arise, to give love even when the world feels unkind. To invite peace before pressure is to live intentionally. It means you are no longer allowing external forces to shape your internal state. You decide that no matter what the day brings, you will not surrender your serenity. You will not allow negativity to take residence in your mind. You will not let fear make a home in your heart. Instead, you build your morning like a sanctuary, a sacred space where your spirit meets the divine. Some find that peace in scripture, others in quiet reflection, others in simply sitting with their thoughts and inviting gratitude to lead. However you begin, the truth remains, when God is your first focus, peace becomes your natural state. Peace is not the absence of struggle, it is the presence of divine stability. When you start your day with God, you begin to see challenges as teachers rather than threats. You begin to understand that every moment, even the difficult ones, carries purpose. You begin to realize that what the world calls pressure, God can use for preparation. The peace He gives does not deny the existence of problems. It reminds you of His power over them. It tells your heart, be still, even when everything around you is moving fast. It teaches you that strength and serenity can coexist, that faith and uncertainty can walk hand in hand, that you can be calm even when you don't have all the answers. Each morning spent with God reshapes the landscape of your inner world. It plants seeds of calm that grow throughout your day. It transforms how you see yourself and how you treat others. You start to speak softer, listen deeper, and love stronger. You begin to carry a stillness that others can feel, a peace that radiates without words. Because when peace lives inside you, it spills over into everything you touch. It influences your conversations, your decisions, your energy. You stop reacting from emotion and start responding from wisdom. You stop striving to prove and start simply being. And all of this begins with one simple choice: to meet God before you meet the world. The morning becomes more than just a time of day. It becomes a sacred exchange. You give God your first moments, and in return, He gives you peace that sustains. You hand Him your worries, and He hands you calm. You surrender your plans, and He fills them with purpose. Every new dawn becomes an opportunity to renew your spirit, to strengthen your faith, to step into your day, not as someone anxious to perform, but as someone deeply aware of divine companionship. And in that awareness, pressure loses its grip, because when peace leads, everything else follows in order. When your mind rests in God, the noise of the world fades into background hum. When your heart beats in rhythm with His, the storms of life become less threatening. To begin your day with God is to make a silent declaration: I choose peace over panic. I choose alignment over anxiety. I choose faith over fear. And every time you make that choice, you shift the entire atmosphere of your day. You become less reactive, more receptive, less hurried, more centered, less overwhelmed, more aware of grace. Because peace is not something you chase, it's something you carry when you stay connected to the One who created it. And that connection begins in the quiet of the morning, when your soul says, before anything else, here I am, Lord. Gratitude in the morning opens the door for grace throughout the day. When you open your eyes to a new dawn, you are witnessing a miracle that often goes unnoticed. The simple act of breathing, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the light slowly pouring through your window. These are not coincidences. They are blessings quietly greeting you, waiting to be acknowledged. Gratitude is not about having everything you want. It's about recognizing everything you already have. It's about shifting your focus from what is missing to what is present, from what is broken to what still works, from what you fear to what you trust. When you begin your day with gratitude, you tune your spirit to a higher frequency, one that attracts grace, peace, and abundance. It is as though you open the windows of your soul and allow the sunlight of divine favor to pour in, illuminating every corner of your being. Gratitude changes how you see the world before the world even has a chance to change you. It softens your heart, clears your mind, and sets your spirit in alignment with heaven. The first thoughts of your morning determine the tone of your entire day. If you begin with complaint, you prepare yourself for conflict. But if you begin with gratitude, you prepare yourself for grace. When your first words are, "Thank you," you remind yourself that life is not something you endure. It is something you are blessed to experience. You remind your soul that even in imperfection there is beauty, even in uncertainty there is divine order, even in waiting there is purpose. Gratitude doesn't ignore what's wrong. It magnifies what's right. It teaches you to see God's hand in the smallest details, to recognize miracles in the mundane, to celebrate what others overlook. In the stillness of morning, before the noise and demands of the day begin, gratitude becomes a spiritual anchor. It centers you in truth before the world tries to sway you with illusion. It reminds you that you are already equipped, already loved, already chosen. You may not have everything you desire, but you have everything you need to start. Gratitude turns ordinary mornings into sacred moments, transforming the way you move through the day. You begin to notice the warmth of your coffee as more than a routine. It becomes comfort. The sound of birds becomes more than background noise. It becomes a song of life. The people you encounter become more than faces. They become reflections of grace. Gratitude changes your perspective until life itself begins to feel like a prayer. When you start your morning by counting blessings instead of burdens, you create a spiritual momentum that carries you through every challenge. You become less reactive and more reflective. Instead of saying, "Why me?" you begin to say, Thank you for trusting me. Gratitude opens your heart to lessons instead of letting pain harden it. It transforms obstacles into opportunities to grow. When gratitude becomes your morning language, grace becomes your daily companion. Grace begins to flow into conversations that might have turned into arguments. Grace enters decisions that might have been rushed by fear. Grace fills the spaces between your plans and God's timing. And all of it begins with a thankful heart that whispers, even before the first step of the day, I am blessed. Gratitude does not require perfection. It thrives in imperfection. It lives in the moments when you choose to give thanks even though everything isn't how you hoped it would be. It is easy to be grateful when life is smooth, when prayers are answered, when doors are opening. But the deepest gratitude grows in the quiet soil of trust. When you thank God not just for what is clear, but also for what is confusing, not just for what is given, but for what is withheld. Because sometimes grace hides behind delays. Sometimes blessings wear the disguise of disappointment. Sometimes unanswered prayers are the greatest gifts of all. Gratitude opens your eyes to see that every experience carries a seed of grace, that even closed doors protect you from paths not meant for your feet. The act of giving thanks in the morning shapes your spirit for whatever comes next. It fills you with patience when the day unfolds differently than expected. It teaches your heart to stay steady when plans shift or storms rise. Gratitude does not make life perfect. It makes life peaceful. It creates a spiritual foundation so strong that no circumstance can shake it. When you start your day with a thankful heart, grace meets you in the smallest moments. It meets you in the kindness of a stranger, in the laughter shared with a friend, in the quiet reminder that you are still here, still breathing, still becoming. Grace does not need grand gestures to appear. It flows naturally toward hearts that are open, humble, and grateful. There is something magnetic about gratitude. It draws good things closer. It shifts your energy, and the universe responds in kind. When you thank God in advance, even for things you cannot yet see, you are declaring faith. You are saying, I trust that good is already on its way. That declaration invites grace to move freely. You start to notice divine alignment in the timing of your day, in the way certain people cross your path, in how the right words come to you when you need them. Gratitude makes you receptive to God's guidance, because it keeps your heart uncluttered. Where there is complaint, grace hesitates. But where there is thankfulness, grace rushes in like a river, filling every empty space with abundance. When you begin your morning with gratitude, your words carry a different vibration. You speak softer, you listen better, you forgive quicker. Gratitude humbles the ego and elevates the soul. It reminds you that every breath is borrowed, every opportunity is divine, every moment is sacred. You begin to walk through the day not as someone taking life for granted, but as someone who understands that even the smallest detail of your existence is evidence of divine love. The way the sunlight falls on your face, the rhythm of your steps, the pulse of your heart, all of it is grace disguised as routine. Gratitude teaches you to unwrap those small moments as gifts, to pause long enough to feel their beauty, to carry that awareness like a soft flame that lights everything you do. When gratitude fills your morning, complaints lose their power. You stop measuring your life by what you lack and start celebrating what you have. You stop comparing your journey to others and start cherishing the uniqueness of your own. Gratitude teaches you contentment, not the kind that settles for less, but the kind that recognizes that peace is not found in accumulation, but in appreciation. When you are grateful, you stop chasing happiness and start living it. You begin to see that joy has always been within reach, waiting for your acknowledgement. You realize that grace has always been present, waiting for your permission to flow freely through your life. Every morning is a new beginning, a new opportunity to express gratitude. Some mornings bring excitement, others bring exhaustion, but gratitude meets both with the same posture of reverence. It whispers, "Even this is a gift." It teaches you to see that grace often shows up disguised as another chance. A chance to try again, to love better, to forgive, to grow, to begin anew. Gratitude makes you aware that life itself is fragile yet profound, fleeting yet full. It gives you the ability to embrace what is instead of constantly longing for what isn't. It brings peace to the restless mind and joy to the weary soul. When you start your day with gratitude, you align yourself with the flow of grace that never stops moving. Grace is not earned, it is received. But it flows easiest toward hearts that recognize it. A grateful person doesn't just look for miracles, they see them everywhere. They see grace in moments of laughter and in moments of silence. They see it in challenges that build strength and in blessings that build joy. They understand that grace is not about perfection, it's about presence, the constant presence of God's love in every situation. Gratitude opens the heart wide enough to receive that love, to feel it, to reflect it. Each thank you you whisper in the morning becomes a seed that blooms throughout the day. The more you nurture gratitude, the more grace grows in your life. It's not magic, it's divine reciprocity. The energy you send out in thankfulness returns to you multiplied as peace, favor, and strength. Gratitude invites grace to follow you wherever you go. It makes even ordinary days feel extraordinary. It fills moments of solitude with comfort and moments of struggle with wisdom. Gratitude in the morning sets the tone for grace to walk beside you, to hold your hand when the world feels heavy, to remind you that no matter what happens, there is still so much to be thankful for. Faith-filled beginnings create fearless journeys. Every morning offers a sacred invitation to trust again, to believe again, to start again. The moment you rise and decide to walk with faith instead of fear, you shift the entire rhythm of your day. Faith in the morning is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about believing that everything has purpose. It is about acknowledging that though the road ahead may not be clear, the one who guides your steps already knows the way. When you begin your day with faith, you silence the voice of doubt before it has a chance to speak. You choose trust over worry, courage over hesitation, and purpose over confusion. The foundation of a fearless life is not built on certainty, but on surrender. It is the quiet confidence that says, even if I don't know how, I know who. That awareness becomes your compass, your courage, and your calm. Faith in the morning reshapes your perspective. It teaches you that the strength you need for the day does not come from your plans, but from your posture of trust. When you wake up and choose faith, you are declaring that no matter what you face, you will not face it alone. You are acknowledging that God is already in the details, already in the moments you fear, already working in the unseen. Faith does not deny reality, it transcends it. It allows you to walk through uncertainty with your head high and your spirit steady. The challenges that used to shake you become reminders of how strong your belief has become. The things that once scared you lose their power when you realize that divine hands hold your path steady. Faith does not remove the mountains. It gives you the strength to climb them without fear. Every great journey begins with a single step of faith. That first step, taken in the quiet of the morning, determines how you will meet the day. Fear often arrives before the facts. It whispers of failure before success even has a chance to bloom. But faith interrupts that whisper. It speaks louder, softer, and truer. It says, you can. It says, you are enough. It says, keep walking. And when you start your day from that space of faith, the impossible begins to look possible. You begin to feel a steady courage that does not come from the world, but from something eternal within you. Faith gives you spiritual sight, the ability to see beyond what is visible, to sense divine order even in apparent chaos, to trust that every delay, every detour, every disappointment is part of a greater direction. There is something sacred about mornings that begin in faith. They carry a quiet assurance that no matter what the day holds, you are held to. You may not know what doors will open or close, but faith teaches you to walk through whichever one appears with grace. It teaches you to release control and embrace flow, to move in alignment with divine timing instead of your own impatience. The world often praises those who plan every detail, but true peace belongs to those who trust every detail to God. When you walk in faith, you stop chasing outcomes and start honoring process. You stop fighting what is unfolding and begin to believe that what is unfolding is for you, not against you. Faith-filled mornings are powerful because they plant courage before fear can take root. They prepare your heart for surprises and your mind for challenges. They allow you to face rejection without losing direction, to encounter setbacks without losing your spirit. Faith turns obstacles into opportunities to prove your resilience. It teaches you that every closed door is not a denial but a redirection, that every pause is not punishment but preparation. When you wake up and remind yourself that God's plan is greater than your anxiety, your steps become lighter. You stop waking up with dread and start waking up with determination. You begin to believe that there is meaning even in the mess, that there is beauty even in the waiting, that there is strength even in the struggle. Faith is the quiet power that turns ordinary people into extraordinary vessels of purpose. It is what keeps you moving when logic tells you to stop. It is what whispers, "Try again," when failure feels final. It is what allows you to smile in storms and walk through uncertainty without trembling. Faith is not loud. It doesn't always shout from the rooftops. Sometimes it's a gentle whisper in your heart that says, "Keep going. Something good is coming." When you begin your day with that whisper, you carry it through every hour, every interaction, every challenge. It becomes your anchor when the winds of life try to push you off course. It becomes your calm when chaos surrounds you. There will always be moments in life that test your faith. There will be mornings when fear tries to rise first, when doubt tries to sit beside you as you sip your coffee, when the weight of yesterday threatens to follow you into today. But those are the mornings when faith becomes most powerful, because faith is not proven in comfort. It is proven in challenge. It is not built when everything goes right. It is built when nothing seems to make sense, and you choose to trust anyway. When you say, "God, I don't understand, but I still believe," something shifts in the unseen. You invite divine strength into your weakness, divine clarity into your confusion, divine peace into your unrest. That is the power of faith-filled beginnings. They prepare you not just to face the day, but to rise above it. Faith teaches you to see beyond the moment. It reminds you that what looks like an ending may actually be the beginning of something new. It keeps you from giving up when life feels heavy. It allows you to walk in darkness without losing sight of the light ahead. When you wake up each day and choose to believe that something good will come, you attract that good. Faith becomes the lens through which you view the world. not through fear of what might go wrong, but through hope of what could go right. And that hope has power. It shifts your energy, it lifts your posture, it fills your heart with a quiet confidence that radiates into everything you do. People will notice it. They may not be able to name it, but they will feel it. It's the peace of someone who trusts deeply, the strength of someone who believes completely. Starting your day with faith changes how you respond to life's unpredictability. Instead of asking, "What if it doesn't work?" you start asking, "What if it does?" Instead of saying, "I can't," you start saying, "I can with God's help." You start taking steps that once scared you. You start speaking words that once felt too bold. You start dreaming dreams that once seemed too far away. Because faith is not only spiritual, it is transformative. It changes your actions, your thoughts, your energy. It empowers you to move even when you don't see the entire path ahead. Like a traveler guided only by the stars, you learn to trust that light will appear as you move. You learn to walk without needing to control. You learn to live with a heart that says, "Even if I fall, I will rise again." A fear may knock at the door each morning, but faith decides who enters. Fear thrives on uncertainty, but faith thrives on the same ground. The difference is perspective. Fear sees risk, faith sees possibility. Fear sees endings, faith sees new beginnings. Fear limits, faith liberates. When you choose faith as the first thought of your morning, you refuse to be a prisoner of doubt. You rise as a warrior of belief. You start living as though the very breath in your lungs is proof that purpose still calls your name. You begin to walk with grace that cannot be shaken, with confidence that does not depend on circumstances, with peace that does not depend on understanding. Faith-filled mornings are the birthplace of miracles. They are where unseen blessings begin to form, where divine alignment begins to unfold, where courage begins to grow roots. Every prayer whispered in faith plants a seed. Some seeds bloom quickly, others take time, but all grow under the light of trust. When you begin your day in faith, you are watering those seeds with patience, love, and expectation. You are saying to the universe, "I am ready for what is meant for me." And the universe, in divine timing, begins to respond. Opportunities appear, peace deepens, strength expands. You start noticing that life begins to flow more easily, not because the path is free of obstacles, but because your heart is free of fear. The most fearless journeys are not the ones without danger or uncertainty. They are the ones where faith leads every step. When you start your morning grounded in faith, you walk through the day with purpose instead of panic. You stop being tossed by every wave of emotion because your anchor is firm. You realize that faith doesn't mean you won't face storms. It means the storms won't face you the same way. It means you can look at the wind and the waves and still move forward, knowing that something greater holds you steady. Every challenge becomes a teacher. Every delay becomes a lesson. Every moment becomes an opportunity to deepen your trust. Faith gives meaning to your journey, and when you begin your day rooted in it, you carry a fearless spirit that nothing in the world can break. The presence of God transforms ordinary mornings into extraordinary miracles. When the world is still wrapped in silence and the first light begins to kiss the horizon, there is a sacred hush that carries divine possibility. In that quiet, before the rush of life begins, the presence of God waits gently, not demanding attention, but inviting it. It does not enter with thunder or spectacle, but with calm assurance. To sit in that presence is to be reminded that you are not merely waking up to another routine day. You are awakening to divine partnership. When God's presence fills your morning, Even the simplest acts take on sacred meaning. The way you rise, the breath you take, the first thought that crosses your mind, all become moments of connection, moments where the ordinary meets the eternal. There is something holy about starting your day aware of that presence. It softens the sharp edges of anxiety and replaces them with peace. It steadies the heart that would otherwise race ahead in worry. It brings light to the mind, still clouded with yesterday's concerns. The presence of God transforms the atmosphere around you. What once felt heavy begins to feel lighter. What once felt uncertain begins to find rhythm. What once felt distant begins to draw near. It is not that life suddenly becomes easy. It is that your spirit becomes anchored. You no longer rush to control what lies ahead because you know the one who already stands there. His presence turns every moment into a sanctuary, every breath into a prayer, every task into a form of worship. An ordinary morning, when met with divine presence, becomes an extraordinary encounter. You begin to notice how the sunlight feels warmer, how the air feels gentler, how time itself seems to slow down long enough for you to feel alive. The presence of God heightens your awareness of beauty. You begin to see life not as a series of obligations, but as a continuous unfolding of grace. Every sound, every color, every heartbeat begins to carry meaning. Even the challenges waiting for you later in the day seem smaller when compared to the vastness of divine companionship. When God is with you, everything becomes infused with purpose. Even the mundane moments, pouring coffee, preparing for work, tying your shoes, become acts of connection, reminders that His hand is guiding every detail. The presence of God in the morning is not something that must be summoned through ritual or perfection. It is already there, waiting to be recognized. It's in the quiet whisper of peace that settles over your room, in the inner calm that tells you everything will unfold as it should. Sometimes it comes as stillness, sometimes as tears, sometimes as a quiet joy that has no words. To feel that presence is to remember who you are and whose you are. It reminds you that you are not forgotten, not unseen, not wandering aimlessly. The presence of God brings you back to center. It brings you back to truth. You are loved. You are guided. You are chosen. And that awareness changes how you carry yourself through the day. When you begin your morning aware of God's presence, you begin to move differently. You speak with more kindness. You listen with more patience. You walk with more purpose. You no longer act from pressure but from peace. The tasks that once felt heavy now feel holy. You begin to see your work not as a burden, but as an offering. The conversations you have become opportunities to reflect love instead of to demand validation. The moments that might have irritated you before become invitations to practice grace. The presence of God refines you quietly, not through force, but through tenderness. It shapes the way you think, softens the way you respond, and strengthens the way you endure. To live aware of divine presence is to live in a state of constant becoming. You are no longer striving to reach God, you are walking with Him. You begin to see that He is not far away waiting for you to call out. He is near, breathing with you, speaking through your intuition, guiding through every circumstance. When you start your day by recognizing this truth, fear begins to dissolve. You realize that no meeting, no problem, no situation is greater than His presence. You start to look at life not as a battle to win, but as a dance of trust. Each step, no matter how uncertain, becomes sacred because He moves with you. The presence of God in the morning brings light to every shadow. It reaches into the corners of your heart where worry hides and replaces it with assurance. It reminds you that you are supported even when you cannot see how. It gives you strength when you feel weary before the day even begins. It teaches you to rest even while moving, to find peace even while doing. The presence of God doesn't remove the demands of the day, it redefines them. Suddenly, what once looked like stress begins to look like opportunity. What once felt like delay begins to feel like divine timing. What once seemed like emptiness begins to reveal hidden blessings. When you carry that presence with you, the ordinary becomes radiant with meaning. There are mornings when you may not feel the presence of God, when everything feels dull, heavy, or disconnected. But even then, His presence is not gone. It is waiting for your stillness to uncover it. Sometimes the noise of life drowns out the sacred whisper, but the whisper never stops speaking. It is patient, it is steady. It does not force itself, it invites. That is why beginning your day in quiet reflection or prayer opens the door to miracles, not because you create them, but because you finally see them. You realize that the divine was always moving, always arranging, always holding you, even in silence. The presence of God is not something that visits occasionally, it dwells continuously. But only those who pause to listen notice its depth. When the presence of God fills your morning, it begins to overflow into every space you enter. People feel it in your calmness, in your gentleness, in your ability to smile even when things don't go your way. They may not understand it, but they sense that something greater lives within you. You become a reflection of the divine, a carrier of peace in places where tension thrives, a light in spaces that feel dark. The presence of God does not just transform your morning, it transforms your impact. It turns you into an instrument of comfort, a vessel of encouragement, a reminder that love and light still exist in the world. Ordinary mornings become extraordinary because God's presence awakens gratitude. You begin to thank Him not only for what you have, but for who He is. Gratitude deepens awareness, and awareness magnifies His presence. You find yourself saying thank you for the simplest things. The breath that fills your lungs, the heartbeat that continues without instruction, the chance to begin again. That gratitude becomes prayer, and that prayer becomes connection. And connection is where miracles begin. Miracles are not always dramatic. Sometimes the miracle is peace in the middle of chaos, forgiveness where there once was bitterness, patience where there once was irritation. The presence of God changes the lens through which you see everything. You stop searching for signs and start recognizing that every moment is one. The presence of God does not discriminate between sacred and secular spaces. It does not only belong to churches, temples, or altars. It belongs to kitchens, cars, workplaces, and quiet rooms. Wherever you invite Him, He enters. That is what makes ordinary mornings extraordinary. They become holy ground. The floor beneath your feet becomes sacred because you realize heaven is not somewhere distant. It is right here, woven into the fabric of your every breath. The more you acknowledge that, the more miracles reveal themselves. You start to see that nothing in your day is random. Every encounter, every delay, every small victory is part of a divine pattern meant to grow your spirit and stretch your love. When you walk with awareness of divine presence, you stop living on autopilot. You begin to savor moments. You begin to respond instead of react. You begin to listen more than you speak. You start to feel time differently, not as something to chase, but as something to cherish. The presence of God teaches you to live slower, deeper, wiser. It teaches you that success without peace is empty, and that joy found in His nearness is lasting. Even when the world feels loud, that inner stillness remains unshaken. It becomes your shield, your anchor, your quiet strength. It reminds you that the storms outside cannot touch the calm within. As the day unfolds, the presence of God continues to shape how you experience everything. It helps you notice beauty in unlikely places. It gives you discernment when making choices. It softens your heart toward those who misunderstand you. It replaces irritation with compassion, exhaustion with renewal, confusion with clarity. His presence breathes life into your words and purpose into your actions. It gives your steps direction and your soul assurance. You begin to feel guided in ways you can't explain, protected in ways you don't fully see. What once felt coincidental begins to feel divinely orchestrated. That is how the presence of God works. It takes what seems natural and reveals its supernatural core. The presence of God in the morning creates a ripple that flows through your entire day. It becomes the quiet rhythm beneath every moment, the sacred hum beneath the noise of life. It is what steadies you when emotions rise, what comforts you when loneliness visits, what strengthens you when fatigue sets in. It is what reminds you that every breath, every step, every heartbeat is an extension of divine grace. The awareness of that presence transforms how you perceive time itself. The day no longer feels rushed, it feels rich. The hours no longer feel heavy, they feel holy. Even the smallest act becomes a thread in the tapestry of something eternal. And so, each morning, when you open your eyes and allow yourself to feel the quiet hum of God's nearness, you begin to live differently. You begin to see differently. You begin to carry a lightness that cannot be explained. Because when the divine presence fills your morning, nothing is ordinary anymore. Everything breathes with purpose. Everything glows with grace. Every moment becomes part of a sacred unfolding that reminds you that you are not simply living. You are being lived through by something far greater, something eternal, something beautifully divine.